Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, he's like a real-life action figure. He proudly served our country as a Marine. He's been a SWAT team leader. Now he's in our studio, and he's going to teach us all how to become unstuck. Next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I think about if you want to build muscle, you go to the gym and you actually have to experience pain. So many people wake up and they could be going to the gym, but they'd be more comfortable laying down and getting another 15 minutes of sleep. So to become unstuck, you actually have to go through some adversity. Someone who knows a lot about that is my next guest, Travis Alla, known as Mr. Unstuck. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you having me back again.
Yeah, no, and I don't often invite people back, but you inspire me so much. And you have a mastermind course that teaches us how to unlearn, unlock, and unleash.
Yes, sir. I do.
Share more about that.
Yeah, so, in life, we often find ourselves either hitting plateaus or barriers, walls, things of that nature, right? And God's put me through a lot of trials. And as I look back, in business and life and family, all the things, really started identifying what allowed me to get through those different barriers and get through the valley to get to that mountain peak, right? And I boiled it down to 3 different steps. It was always, whether personally or professionally, it was unlearning the limiting beliefs and what I was letting the enemy convince me I was under, right? Unlocking my best and highest use, or my team's secret sauce, or just overall what God's called me to be. And then unleashing that into taking territory, building legacy, and really differentiating who I was in the marketplace, who my team was compiled of, and just overall bringing the best boiled up to the top and allowing to push through that next barrier.
You bet. We're going to pull up your website. It's a beautifully designed website, and I want to talk a little bit about your coaching career, your speaking career. What does a good client look like for you?
Yeah, it varies. I've got clients that are young entrepreneurs. I've got CEOs of companies that I coach. I've got couples, married couples, just anybody that is mentally having trouble getting past the limitations they've set, right? So it's really more of an accountability coaching, think coaching, and anywhere that people find that they could be doing more or could be getting different results, and they just find themselves on a treadmill and they're tired of taking laps, that's usually a good client.
Outstanding. I found a great video. It's a long video, but we're going to show just a clip of it. Let's go ahead and roll that.
My name is Travis Ayla. I'm a warrior, father. I've been going to ELC now for about 2 years. When it comes to my journey, it really started growing up in a Mormon household. Growing up, my mom, she divorced several times and was always looking for a new father figure for me, and put me into a corner of feeling like anything that I wanted in life, anything I wanted to be, like I had to be the pinnacle or I was an outcast. The byproduct of leading a life like that forced me to seek that validation through accolades, achievements, accomplishments. So once I got out of high school, I joined the Marine Corps, excelled there, again, making it about me and always seeking that next achievement, that next accolade, that next title, but I still had that void. It never went away. After the Marine Corps, I became a police officer out in Annapolis, Maryland, and put me right back into a great environment of being able to be a leader and go pursue awards, accolades, officer of the year, detective of the year, things like that, because all I knew was what mattered to me. I was focused on who I was. I was involved in everything because I was the guy, right? And I wanted to be the guy. All these awards and accolades, I could call my shot around a tri-state area. But ultimately, that came to a crash in about 2015. I was involved in a traffic accident. I was on my way home from the gym when I rear-ended another vehicle, and that collision sent me in the air, landing on that passenger vehicle. And I remember distinctly having to jump out of this vehicle with the driver's side door on the ground. So I'm standing on my driver's side door looking up in a smoking vehicle. The only way out is to reach up over me, lift this door, and climb out of the car. So I immediately go into what I am, right? First responder. But that was the most gut-wrenching moment in my life, to run up as a first responder to a vehicle that I had just impacted. I know I'm the only person there at the moment to have any impact on saving their lives, but I also know touching them can do them more harm. The best thing for me to do is to make the scene safe and clear for fire and rescue when they get there, to stabilize them and let the true experts do their best to save their lives. And that moment right there was, and still is, easily the most helpless moment of my life, being my whole career has been centered around service and saving lives and taking care of the community. And I am the one person that can't do a single thing. I had to watch both victims get life flighted out while I sat there completely unscratched. And fire, at about a midway point, came rushing over to the vehicle that I was in, and they're panicking, asking, who's in this vehicle? We got to find the driver of this vehicle. To which I raised my hand up. I was driving that vehicle. They're looking at me in complete disbelief, like, there's no way. There's zero chance you survived this accident. Who was in the car? You were the first responder. You're the first person on the scene. We know that, but who was in the car? I was like, I was driving the car. And they pause and they look at me, and I'll never forget this moment. One of them looks at me and is like, man, you got a guardian angel. There's no chance that you should be alive, much less just standing here telling us about this accident. And keep in mind, I was as far from God as possible at this moment. And they life flighted these victims out, and they passed away at the hospital. And I walked away from an accident completely unharmed, where 3 people lost their lives. And I spent the next year of my life questioning everything.
Travis, is that hard for you to watch?
Yes and no. I mean, I embrace it, right? So I wouldn't be who I am had not gone through that. You know, death is one of the, if not the greatest teachers in life. So I've worked through that enough to learn that it's not something that has happened to me, but it's something that's happened through me that I can carry forward in helping others get through tough trials, right? So.
And you mentioned towards the end of that video that you didn't really have much of a relationship with God at the time.
I had no relationship with God at the time.
How did that change you?
Yeah, the year that followed that sent me down a very dark path, as you can imagine. I succumbed myself to reading all the quotes and all the accusations and all the judgment, and it really just made me rethink, like, what am I doing on this world, and why are we here? You know, the age-old questions that we always ask ourselves. And it drove me deep into figuring that out, which ultimately led me to having a relationship with God and digging deep into the Bible and biblical principles, and just overall, what is this snapshot of time that we're experiencing bestowed upon us to actually do, right? So that everywhere I looked, no matter what I tried to figure out, I ultimately just kept coming back to God.
Wow. Well, I think that's just probably why it makes you such an effective coach, because the accolades are wonderful, SWAT team, Marines, all that wonderful stuff in your background, but the trials and tribulations you went through because of that accident, it's profound.
Yeah. No, and that's definitely been a staple and a cornerstone of building out this coaching is, everybody and their mother nowadays is hopping into the coaching area, right? But there's a lot of theory. There's not as much transformational aspects out there because not very many people have the receipts, have actually walked the walk. And the great thing about what we're doing with this mastermind, and I say we because it's a platform to bring other coaches on as well, and guys that have actually been through some hard times. And at the end of it, everything is brought back to biblical principles. So whether you're a follower or believer of Christ or not, you can always typically agree with doing what's right, working humbly and loving people, right? So, and that's, for me, that comes out of Micah 6:8, but that may not come out of the Bible for others, but they can always get on those concepts. So everything that we do from an accountability standpoint, we bring back to biblical principles and things that nobody can really argue with.
Sure. And I think we all get stuck from time to time.
Yeah.
We're doing well. We're cruising along and we're plateauing. So this mastermind is really for people who are not happy with the status quo.
Yeah.
Talk about, you mentioned business executives. Would this be something that a college student might want to get involved in? I mean, who do you see as a member of your mastermind?
Yeah. No, we've got college students, CEOs. Like I said, we have a pretty broad range of clientele because no matter the walk of life, a good 80-90% of the time I can ask somebody, like, what are your core values, right? What's your mission statement? Who are you? And a lot of the answer is usually their identity is rooted in what they do for work, right? Or what accomplishments they've made. So anybody that hasn't figured out their true purpose and identity and mission statement and like what their goals are for the next 10 years is an ideal client. And you may or may not be surprised how many people on this planet have no idea who they are. No matter how successful they are, typically the most successful are usually the most lost as well.
And I think it's very timely that we're doing this in January. This is the month of all resolutions. Why don't you, in the last minute or so, talk to that person who's stuck and absolutely needs to get out of that rut?
Yeah. We often focus on, especially like at this time, New Year's, right? New Year's resolutions and where am I headed? What's the goal? And one thing I can tell you is if you focus on the goal and the destination, you're going to miss it completely. It's all about the journey, right? It's all about what you go through, the peaks and valleys in between of trying to get to where you think you're destined to go, because that point always changes. It's always a moving target. And going back to what I told you about, death is always the best teacher. One exercise I usually do this time of year with a lot of clients is, people understand the concept of building out a one-year vision or putting their goals together and what have you. And I'll sit down with them and we'll go over their goals. And then I'll ask them, okay, now, if an angel came over your shoulder and said, you've got 30 days more to live, now look at your goals list and see what that looks like to you. And most of the time, you'll see people completely change the order of what they had planned for that year, right? Because we're always thinking with the end in sight, but the end isn't guaranteed to us, right? What's guaranteed to us is today, right? Tomorrow's not even guaranteed. So whatever you think you want to accomplish, you're probably not believing big enough. And however long you think you have to get there, you don't. So it's really dialing down the ability of figuring out the harmony in your life, because balance is non-existent, and figuring out what's really important to you if you only had 30 days left.
Wow, what a great way to end this program. We're also going to leave you with his website, which is Unstuck.com. The great Travis Ayla. Thanks for coming on the show.
Appreciate you having me.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.